Cloud. Awesome. Welcome to Survival Mode. This is a podcast about overcoming, a traumatic experience in life. My name's Todd. I'm a registered nurse, also a certified health coach who faced a traumatic diagnosis of a brain tumor and wanted to share some lessons in my own journey. But in my journey, I really reached out to hear other people's stories about their life and living and moving to the next level, and some of the struggles and maybe debilitating effects, and also working through what may be holding people back to live a life of purpose, meaning, and just crushing it. And I am super, super honored to have, I'm going to say, a famous guy, Stevie D. Stevie D is an author, a comedian, Beverly Hills, LA. He's talking about people that, like, I used to, as a kid, be like, oh my God, like I'm going to see a concert with these guys or whatever. And he's written a couple books. He's had quite an interesting journey, which he'll share, in his health and really what he's learned from it. And he's just living life out loud. And I'm just super honored to have him. So welcome, Stevie D.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me on, Todd. And how you feel, like you were saying, when you were listening to these rock stars as a kid or whatever, I still feel that way. And I hang out with them and I do projects with them. And I perform on stage with a lot of comics but just to be I'm still like a kid. I still have the enthusiasm. Like, for instance, on Thanksgiving, we had our big Thanksgiving dinner at my mother-in-law's and we're cleaning up. And my sister-in-law says, hey, who wants coffee? And I'm like, right here, dude, I'll take some coffee. And my wife's like, he's not allowed to have coffee at night. He's already on 11 all the time. I'm like, I guess no coffee. She's like, no coffee for him. He's already on like natural Red Bull or whatever's going through my veins.
I love it. I love it. And like I was reading a little bit about you. We were just chatting before this, and I was like, oh my God, like I could probably talk to you for like a day. It just kind of like, oh my God, this is great. So tell me a little bit about kind of where you came from, your kind of your upbringing, and then kind of what got you into what you do now or did. Okay. Kind of take me through that. I want to hear a little bit about that.
Sure. So Todd, I grew up in Kentucky, Western Kentucky, right where the areas where the tornado just hit. Okay. Luckily we were spared, but Western Kentucky, a town called Owensboro, Kentucky. Single mom, 3 mothers. I said I couldn't play sports, but I did a mean French braid growing up. So I had a sister, Donna, that was the man of the house. She would kick my butt all the time. I talk about her in my act, but, very humble beginnings. My mom worked in a factory for almost 50 years. And I just, growing up, I would watch TV a lot, like variety shows. And I go, I want to do that. I don't know how to do that, but it was magical. I'd listen to the radio and take me to a radio station because I wanted to learn how broadcasting was done, how to entertain people. And I always knew I wanted to pursue my dream, whatever that took, no plan B. And I think that got me through a lot of adversity. As a kid, growing up, we were very poor, and just having those dreams and those fantasies and that optimism where there is something better. And I believe in myself. And no matter what the circumstances may look like, we were poor, single parent, whatever. I'm like, no, I got like a little secret because I'm going to make this happen. I got something planned. So long story short, in the 11th grade, I'd never really traveled outside of Kentucky. In the 11th grade, got the opportunity to go to Panama City Beach with a friend's parents for spring break. And I thought it was like paradise. I was like, man, there's like beaches and sunshine and bikinis and nightclub. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Yeah. So I went back to Kentucky and I began telling all of my friends, when I graduate, I'm going to move to Panama City Beach and I'm going to be a DJ. There was a club there called Spinnaker. And they're like, okay, yeah, whatever, you're going to work in a factory, whatever. And so 2 weeks after high school, I was already registered, enrolled to go to Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green. But I'm like, I was starting to get in a lot of trouble. in the 12th grade, I had my own apartment in high school.
Okay.
I called the bad news. You don't want a high school guy to have, just nothing good is going to come out of that.
No.
So I knew like I may be enrolled in Western Kentucky University, but I'm not going to, I'll cruise to one semester and probably get kicked out of school. And then what? So I'm like, I just better get the hell out of Dodge. So I went to Panama City Beach, and within, I'd say, a year and a half, I was a DJ at Spinnaker, where I said I was going to be a DJ.
Wow.
And so I'm like, too bad I didn't visit Washington, D.C. in high school and see the White House or something, but.
But you believed it. You were like, this is what I'm going to do. And your friends were probably like, yeah, he's full of it. Right?
Whatever, dude. Yeah. But you want to hear the crazy thing, Todd, is my very first book signing when the Trans Am Diaries came out. I don't know where the book signing is going to be. Like the publisher and my publicist, they signed me up for book festivals. You're going here. My very first book signing ever was at Western Kentucky University.
Wow.
I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm a little bit late for class.
Well, I was looking at one of your book, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I was looking at the cover, and it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're wearing like an Evel Knievel outfit. Is that true, or is it an Elvis outfit?
That is very true. I've got the stunt cycle back there. I'm all about Elvis. Evil as a kid. I was always jumping trash cans in the middle of the street on my BMX bike just to get attention.
Me too, man.
Yeah, you do it. You get the glory until you land. And Evil says the
jump over each other, like we'd lay people.
Oh yeah,
out,
And you never want to be the guy on the end. On the end.
No,
that was never the sharpest tool in the shed that says, "I'll be around here."
That's awesome, man. All right, so you go down and you're a DJ, right? So
I was a DJ, yes.
Yeah, you check that box, right? So what's next?
So I was there for 4 years, and during the off seasons, the clubs, they close up shop. The whole city of Panama City Beach closes up, and I had to scramble. I was pretty much homeless. So I'm like, oh, I guess I'll go to Atlanta and try that out for a winter. So I'd show up in Atlanta, not having an apartment. I knew a couple of friends that would be going up there, and I would couch surf. Ended up working in Atlanta at a club downtown called Club 131.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only white person within probably a 10-mile radius, and I was the DJ at that club. Went to Tallahassee one year, DJ'd in Tallahassee where, FSU and all the college kids are. And I'd always come back to Spinnaker. And after 4 years, and I was hosting all the spring break stuff, and the spring break stuff, the last year I was there, I didn't even DJ. I just entertained people. I'd go out and joke around in front of the spring break crowds. I'm like, I can do this. This was a part of my vision of being a host, of being on TV. I'm like, people are listening to the nonsense coming out of my mouth, and they're kind of enjoying it a little bit. So after that, I just said, I'm going to LA. I'd never been to California. And I put 2 suitcases and an Elvis King Creole movie poster I had framed in the back of my car, and Holiday Row. And I just came straight to 10 West until I hit Santa Monica Beach. Wow. And I've been here ever since.
Yeah. So you got there, then you're like, what'd you do?
So the crazy thing is I spent $500 before I left Panama City Beach. And I had all these videos of me hosting spring break and going out and, telling jokes and doing all this crazy stuff in front of thousands of spring breakers. And in my mind, in California, I'm like, well, if they have clubs like this in Florida on the beach, LA must be lined for miles all the way up, to Malibu with clubs just like this. There's no clubs like that, Todd. As I was saying before we started recording, everything in LA is spread out. I think it's, what TMZ stands for?
I don't know what it stands for, but I know what it is.
So TMZ stands for 30-mile radius. So everything here is within a 30-mile radius, Todd.
No way.
So you do a lot of driving. So you and 14 million other people are sharing this 30-mile radius. So there's no clubs, nothing like what I came here to do.
I'm thinking of that show or the channel, TMZ, right?
Yeah, TMZ. So TMZ, that stands for 30-mile zone. I'm sorry, 30-mile zone.
Okay.
So everything in entertainment, Harvey said, happens within that 30-mile zone.
And you had video clips, right?
I had VHS,
That's what I was
the
about to go
reels.
to. I'm thinking this is in the 90s or late 80s, right?
Yes, yes,
Thinking,
yes.
like, we didn't have phones, like everyone's like snapping photos. Like,
Bro, I
it was
wasn't
hard
like,
to get
check out my
video.
Instagram. I was like, here's a VHS tape, bro. That's 8 minutes of golden entertainment right there.
And you're like guarding it. You don't want water to get in it.
Oh, dude.
Like back in the day, we didn't have all that stuff.
Nope.
Everyone just pulls out a phone. Thank God. I'd probably be in jail or something.
Yeah.
All these videos, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so everything's kind of spread out. You got video. What are you doing with it?
So I started hustling. I started going to clubs and giving my VHS tape. And there's a club inside the LAX Marriott called Champions Sports Bar. It was a hard rock for sports. So you walk in and you got Michael Jordan's jersey. Everything is sports, but just like a Hard Rock Cafe set for sports. So they were looking for an entertainment director. I actually saw an ad in the LA Times. I'd already been here like 4 months, not working, what little savings I had. I had a little bit of money. And you know how I got that little bit of money? And I came here in like $8,000. I one night did a drunken, jackass stunt before Jackass, flipped off a balcony and broke my arm.
Oh my God.
Turns out there was no bolts in the railing of the balcony around the balcony. It was just a railing sitting there. So when I went to do a handspring over it, the railing came with me. So I said, I was leaning against the railing and I fell off. It was a horrible accident. And I told people at the party, I fell off, remember? So anyway, the property owner, so I got like $8,000 settlement. I'm like, all right, let's go to LA. So that burned out. That goes real quick, very quickly in LA. So I saw an ad in the LA Times. It said entertainment director, looking for an entertainment director, this new club. So I go down and I'm in line to be interviewed. And these people have master's degree, hotel, hospitality degrees. One guy had worked for like the Lakers as the marketing or whatever. And when it was my time, and it was this cute girl interviewing, so I kind of like, hey, what's going on? Hey, where are you from? So when it was my time, I kind of said, look, hey, by the way, do you want to see my VHS tape? It's pretty awesome. But I said, look, I have a DJ background. I DJed at all these places. I can host anything you want to, any event you want to do. I can handle that. And she said, we're looking for a DJ. She said, we talked. She looked at my background, and so I got the gig. And so I DJ'd there, LAX Marriott, and turns out a lot of people would come through there. The Lakers would come in, the Kings would come in, the Raiders would come in. I was there DJing the night that Dr. Dre got shot. So if you see the Dr. Dre behind the music, I was DJing that part of it. So that led me to other clubs. And I ended up DJing at bigger clubs like Shark Club downtown and the Mayan, like huge clubs. But I was still like behind the scenes. Like when I was a kid, Todd, I was a drummer in a band. And I was like, hey, I'm way back here. Who can see me back here? Like I'm keeping the backbeat going, but I should be up there. So same thing as a DJ. I love music. I love putting it together and making people feel good, but I wanted to be in front of people talking. So I said, I think I can do stand-up comedy. So what you do when you want to do something, you tell everybody around you for about a year. I think finally you got to shut up or put up, Yeah. So I started doing comedy, and I couldn't DJ and do comedy at the same time because they're both night gigs. Yep. So I started weaning away from DJing and leaning into comedy. But from there, comedy wasn't paying the bills. DJing paid the bills. So I had to find a day job, which I'd never had. And I was working out. I was into fitness. So I started looking around, and people would ask me sometimes, hey, are you a trainer? I'm like, no. And so I thought, well, shit, maybe I should be a trainer. Mm-hmm. So I got certified, and I started training at Beverly Hills Health and Fitness on Beverly Boulevard. A lot of celebrities would come in there, and I started picking up clients as a trainer. So then I just pulled back from DJing. As much as I love music, I could set my own schedule and then spend more time in the comedy world. And just like DJing, you work your way up the ranks. You start as a happy hour DJ, then you come in from 2 hours from 8 to 10 before you get that sweet night spot, 10 to 2 or whatever. I would do every gig. It took about 5 years of doing coffee shops, strip clubs, you name it. We told jokes there before I started getting, known in the well-known comedy places, the Laugh Factories, the comedy stores. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. So
just grinding,
you started doing that, and then you just started getting into these higher end kind of comedy places, or?
Well, you got to be kind of funny. You can't just show up every night. You got to tell
can't.
some jokes that people laugh. But yeah.
And you had a pretty good skit, huh?
So as I say in the Trans Am Diaries, I would drive down the Sunset Strip every day and look at the marquee on the Laugh Factory. And I'm like, I can be telling jokes anywhere, but nothing matters until I see my name on that marquee. Nothing matters. And that was one of the most proud moments, is when one day I looked up and my name said Thursday night, Stevie D. And I was like, okay. And you just want to stand on Sunset and wave to people and go, hey, that guy's me. But when my mom came out for my wedding, which is the first time she had ever been on an airplane, by the way, my mama came out, and after she was here for a few days after the wedding, they were about to go back. And I said, Mom, did you have a good time? She's like, yeah. I said, what did you most enjoy? Thinking she would say the ceremony or the reception, or, she said, seeing your name up on that sign. So that meant the most to her.
That's awesome.
I was like, and the wedding was kind of cool too, right?
Yeah.
So that felt good to make my mama proud, who thought I was crazy as a kid, saying, I'm going to move to California.
What I love about your story so far is, like, you had this kind of inspiration and you just did it. And you've done it a couple times. You said, hey, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to go to Panama City. I'm going to go out. I'm going to be on that sign. And you did it. You know what I mean?
Well, there's no plan B, Todd. I think Eddie Murphy said, focus on plan A and don't spend any time on plan B. Because if plan A is your dream, go for it. But the mistake, I think, not to preach, but a lot of people aren't happy until they hit that top of the mountain or whatever. But I don't think it's about getting there. I think it's about every day. As long as you're doing what you love. If I was playing music in a shitty little dive bar, who cares? I'm playing music. Doesn't matter where I'm at. You're telling jokes. Doesn't matter if there's 5 people there or 500 people. Are you enjoying it? Are you enjoying the journey? Are you grateful? Or you have gratitude every day when you open your eyes, and you've been through it, and what it's like to appreciate every day we're given.
At that time, do you feel like you had that gratitude at that time?
I enjoyed life. I enjoyed people. I enjoyed the journey. And I was okay not being rich and, where I wanted to be. I was still getting there. And I never looked at anyone and thought, oh, they're better than me because they're more successful, or they're less than me because they're whatever their job is. I just like people. I enjoy what I do. I see the best. I try to look for the best in people. So I enjoy the journey. I still do. And there's people that are way more successful than me that I started with that have blown up. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm happy for you, but I'm still happy for myself. I'm grateful. I'm healthy. I have a family. I'm still silly. I'm not jaded at all.
That's awesome. So you were in the comedy. So what were some of the big milestones when you were doing comedy? You did some, a lot of different things, right?
Yeah. Like I said, getting my name on the marquee at the Laugh Factory Sunset Strip. I do a thing on my podcast. I think I told you at the end of the show, I like to ask my guests, what's your hell yeah moment? Like, hell yeah, hell yeah. So that was a hell yeah moment, getting my name up there, having Rockstars of Comedy come out. And that was just an idea in my head.
What was that, if you don't mind, for the
So
audience?
Rockstars of Comedy. So I had my own night at the Laugh Factory on Thursday nights. And it became really popular. I was the first person to have a DJ because I knew the importance of music. and how music lifts your spirits. And as you and I were talking before, like when we're driving, we want something to lift. When I'm in the gym every day, the music has to be right, or the workout's not going to be good. It's a music and it's a mood enhancer. I dare, if anybody can listen to James Brown and not want to, shake your ass a little bit, you're dead inside. You got
100%.
100%. Or last night we were talking about Sebastian Bach. I went to see him last night, and I'm old and it's a school night. I'm like, come on, dude, it's midnight. But when he played like I'll Remember You or Monkey Business, I'm like, yes, I can get 4 hours of sleep. I'm still going to be good. But yeah, so Rockstars of Comedy was something that stemmed from having my own show at the Laugh Factory. So the show became very popular where, Dane Cook or Chris Rock performed there, or Damon Wayans, or whoever was, Whitney Cummings. All these comics would come in on Thursday night because it would be packed. The DJ was fun. And I saw the tides turning where comedy was going a little faster. Instead of being so cerebral, where you can get up. Now, if you're super famous, Todd, you can go on stage and sit on a stool for 45 minutes and people, they're captivated. But if you're not famous like me and just trying to grind and get their attention, you jump on stage with your A game, and I'm happy to be there. So I'm going to do hair flips and I'm going to bring it. And they're like,
you're bringing it on. You're not just sitting there like an ornament, right?
Bro, it's 8 people here tonight. It's late, settle down. I'm like, no, I'm still happy to be here. And I want these people to be happy. So it started to be a really good night. And as a matter of fact, 60 Minutes, Chris Rock was going to host the Academy Awards the first time. And 60 Minutes was going to do a piece on him that was going to be aired a week before the Academy Awards, a story on him. But Chris wanted to come in, so he called Jamie Masad. He wanted to try out his Academy Award material. Super secretive. Nobody could know any of these. None of these jokes could be recorded. We couldn't be holding up our phones. And so Chris's people and 60 Minutes called Jamie Masad at the Laugh Factory and said, hey, what's a good night? Chris wants to come in. He's going to come in with the 60 Minutes crew, and he's going to do the set from the Oscars, before the Oscars, to try out this material. But it's got to be on the down low. He doesn't want it advertised. Don't put it on the marquee. And I know Stevie D is going to suggest, Chris Rock and Stevie D tonight. That was my suggestion. But they said, no, it's got to be low key. So they said, come in on Thursday. It's a fun night. So the Laugh Factory called me and said, Stevie, keep this on the down low. Chris Rock is coming in with 60 Minutes, the whole crew. He's going to do his Academy Award, his Oscars material, but you can't tell anybody. Well, I had an email list. I had people that came every week. They wanted to know who's on the lineup. So 30 seconds after he hung up, I did an e-blast. Tonight only, Chris Rock. Tonight only, don't miss it. Because he wanted it to be a good night, but he didn't want anybody to know he was going to be there.
Wow.
He really wanted to try out the material without people super excited just to Chris, So we get there and there's a line around the block, up the street. The 60 Minutes producers come in and go, what the hell is going on? Who let the cat out? And they ask me, and I go, what are you talking about? This is Thursday night. That's what we do on Thursday nights.
Right.
So the cameras started rolling, and nothing was to be recorded, of course. But of course, I had my DJ secretly recording upstairs in the balcony. And I said, Chris, shoot, I'm going to be on 60 Minutes because I'm bringing Chris on stage. Yeah. So I went up to Chris. I said, Chris, what do you want for your intro? He goes, man, I don't care, man. Just bring me up. And I go, just bring you up? I'm going to be on camera for 2 seconds. I'm like, no, I got to make up the world's longest intro. So I went on stage calling him the voice of our generation. It was going on and on.
Oh my God.
He finally came on stage. I'm shaking his hand. I won't let go of his hand. Come on, 60 Minutes. Hey, look, Mom. So just moments like that, we were talking about being excited as a kid. And then it's surreal to work with people that that you've seen on TV or you admire. So that was good. After the cancer, I'm sure you probably want to talk about that. But
Yeah, sure.
When I wrote the book, so that was a huge thing, writing the book. But getting married, but the best thing that ever happened to me, Todd, ever, was my kids. Like,
so you got married, right? Kids.
I got married.
And then when was the diagnosis?
We didn't go in reverse order, Todd. We didn't go Kentucky style.
I think it's Connecticut style too.
Yeah.
You went married, kids,
yes,
and then you had a pretty kind of shocking diagnosis, right?
Yeah. So I got married, had my son, and just changed everything. I actually slowed down with the comedy. I started pitching ideas for shows, got a little traction. After Rockstars of Comedy came out, it was out when my son was born. So I got a production deal from that. And then I started pitching other ideas. I'm like, maybe I can do this and host and then still do comedy, but just not grind every night, because I wanted to be present. I wanted to be Mr. Mom. I wanted to wake up and rock my son at 2 o'clock in the morning. So my son he was a baby, and I started feeling funky, like something was going on with my body. Mm-hmm. Started feeling an ache. Started feeling an ache a little south of the border, and going to the bathroom a lot at nights. So I'm like, this is something's going on, because I was into fitness, into nutrition. So I went in and asked for a prostate exam, and they said, okay. So he turned the lights down and put on some Barry White, and
and you sang Moon River.
Yes.
Like Fletch? Remember
yes.
Fletch?
Luckily, yes. One hand was on my shoulder, not both hands.
Thank God, right?
Yeah. That's weird.
How'd you do that?
Yeah. So yeah, that's what you think about. You think of, like, I don't want to be thinking of the movie Fletch when he's, yeah. So I didn't know what a PSA was. I just thought enlarged prostate. So he said, no, you don't have an enlarged prostate. You maybe you're drinking too much water. You're getting older, whatever the case. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So 2 years went by. I actually switched insurance companies, and I had switched insurance companies, and I went in just for a physical. The same symptoms persisted, gotten even worse. And I went in for a physical, and with this insurance company, makes you come back for the blood work, which I just kind of blew. I was busy. And then they sent me a reminder right before the end of the year. It was like right before Christmas. Said, hey, dude, you didn't come in for your blood work. I'm like, all right, I'll knock this out. They said, you got to do this you should do it before the new year. So I went in, and I think literally it was December 23rd, I get a call from a nurse. And you're familiar with what PSAs are, PSA levels. Yep. So I get a call one night. I answer the phone. I'm like, hey, this is nurse so-and-so. And I was like, how you doing? She goes, Steve, can you come back in? Your PSA level is very high. I said, what's PSA? And she said, oh, that relates to your prostate. You're having prostate issues. So I'm like, okay. And she's like, as soon as possible. So the levels must have been like, we need this needs some attention. So it was 2 days before Christmas. I'm like, let's wait till after Christmas. So I went in, I think 1st of January, levels were high. They wanted to do a biopsy. I did the biopsy. And first you get the question, from the doctor. First they're going to decide if they're going to do the biopsy. Do you smoke? No, I don't smoke. I'm a trainer. I'm into fitness. And the doctor was like, that doesn't mean anything. I know doctors that smoke. I'm like, well, I think they're hypocrites. He's like, we're going in. So no prostate cancer in my family that I knew of. I didn't smoke. I didn't know what was going on. So they did the biopsy and found out, I did have cancer, prostate cancer. And then you become like a prostate cancer expert. You do a deep dive. And Found out the average age is 74.
Yep.
I was 44. So I'm like, what, how was, try to lead a good life and be healthy. And so, yeah, from there, you got to make a decision because I was young to get it. A lot of older guys get it.
When you heard you had cancer, what was going through your head? You're married, you have a kid, you have one kid at this point.
I had one. So when I found out I had cancer, so Todd, I had gone in 2 years before and they checked the prostate and said, you don't have an enlarged prostate, right? 2 years later, they do the PSA and say, you have cancer. I said, I went in for this 2 years ago and they said, oh, you had cancer then. So luckily you found it right now because we don't have much time. And in that 2-year window, Todd, my daughter was born.
Okay.
So if they would have diagnosed it the first time that they would have diagnosed it, shop is closed at that point. So no more kids. So I would just have my son. So the silver lining is it's okay. I lived. They took care of the cancer and my daughter was born, whose name happens to be Faith.
I love it.
Thank you. So it's great. I hate to say it, but I'm glad they didn't find it the first time around, And when
like
she's a little
of those blessings, right? In disguise.
Yeah. When she's a little pain in the butt, sometimes I remind her, hey kid, look, you're lucky that doctor wasn't competent the first time.
So when you're going through this after the first of the year, when it starts getting serious, like, is there stuff running through your head? Like, oh my God, like, what are you thinking?
Well, when I got the call, Todd, well, first of all, I go in for the biopsy. The doctor's like, it's probably not anything. He goes, the nurse will call you and give you the results. I said, okay. So I was actually in the gym and I missed a call and I listened to the voicemail and it was the doctor. I was like, So right away, I got a bad feeling. Why is he calling me? So I get in traffic on like the 405. It's like a 5 o'clock. He calls me and kind of like, no big deal. Hey, Steve. Hey, anyway, Dr. So-and-so. And yeah, it looks like you got cancer. And so I need to see you as soon as possible. I'm like, about to drive off the road. So going through your mind's racing. Am I going to be dead in a week? Is it 2 weeks? Do I have a month, 6 months? I said, what came out of my mouth is, should I go to work tomorrow? Like, do I need to start getting my affairs in order? What's going on? He's like, yeah, go to work. Why wouldn't you go to work? I go, because you just said I had cancer. That's why I may not go to work. Because do I need to? So I went home. My wife knew I was going to be getting this call. I had called her and said, oh, the doctor called and he said he's going to call me back. And she's like, let me know the minute. So I had another 30, 45 minute drive home. I didn't call her. So I think she knew like something was, I didn't call her back. So I walked in the door. We had my daughter, the baby. I think she was 3 months old, my son. And she's like, what did he say? And my son looks and I go, I'll tell you in a second. So went to the bathroom, gathered my thoughts, and I came out and just said, it is that. And, and so she's a go-getter right away. She's like, what do I need to do? When do we take care of this? She's Googling prostate cancer. When do I need to go to work? She was like a cave woman. Should I go kill a bison tonight? What's going on?
She's I'll make the mission, fire. Right?
She's like, let's rock this. So she was actually my champion that started researching, reaching out to her friends. I started, researching a little bit. My doctor went in, my urologist who discovered it, didn't mention something called robotics, prostatectomy, the Da Vinci method.
Yep.
Didn't mention that. They were just going to go, the way they do it at the time. And someone else suggested, hey man, you should check in. I talked to a pathologist who was a friend of a friend who called me, check out robotics. It's less invasive. It's, said, okay, how do we do that? So then I asked a friend of mine who I had trained, producer named Arlene Sorkin. So Arlene Sorkin, she's a legend herself. The character Harley Quinn is based on Arlene Sorkin. So Arlene Sorkin was the voice of the animated version, Harley Quinn. They created it based on her personality. Her husband is Chris Lloyd, who created Modern Family and Frasier. And so thank God for her. She started reaching out to her friends. So she got to Dr. David Agus, who was Lance Armstrong's doctor. Well, this guy wasn't going to see me. I'm going to see whoever my insurance covers. That's who I'm seeing.
Right.
He was outside the network, as they say in your world, outside
the network.
But he did give me some amazing advice. He said, yes, check out robotics and check out my college roommate is now this doctor named Stephen Williams, who's an amazing doctor I was with Kaiser at the time, Kaiser Permanente. He's with Kaiser. Get to him. You want to get to Steve? I said, let's get to Steve. So I went on this wild goose chase looking for this guy. And I would call a Kaiser and set up an appointment. I'd go to this Kaiser. Oh, he just went to this other Kaiser 2 months ago. I couldn't get to this guy. Finally, like months are going by. My doctor, my urologist scheduled the prostatectomy. He said, we need to be aggressive with you, Steve. Don't listen to anybody that says, take chemo pellets. We're going to do this treatment. He goes, we're going in, we're getting your prostate out, full radical prostatectomy. And first of all, I said, where things still work down there, because if they don't work, I might rather just die with it working and ride out a few more years.
Honestly, Stevie,
I would go out saluting,
I'd be like, I don't know.
That's what guys think. And I think, Todd, that's why a lot of guys don't get checked, because they're afraid of that. There's a stigma. So he said, no, everything's going to be good, but we need to take care of this. So I kept trying to get to this guy. Meantime, I was buying time with him for the surgery, trying to get to Stephen Williams. And I got another appointment, or my wife probably did, with a doctor down in Orange County that did the radical prostatectomy. He did the Da Vinci method.
He used that Da Vinci. Yep.
Yes, Da Vinci.
Yep.
So I got to him. And you have to be accepted to get it, because I guess it's an
around what year is this?
This was about 10 years ago.
10 years
right?
ago. That's what I was thinking.
So yeah. So I went in, and you're kind of having an interview with him to see if he's going to accept to do this procedure, this operation on you. So I took in a picture that's around here somewhere of my family, my babies, Colin and Faith. And I said, look, doc, you see these guys right here? I need to be around for a long time. They're dependent on me. So he gave me an exam, checked me out and said, yes, I'll do it. I said, hell yeah, let's do this. That was a hell yeah moment right there.
That's a hell yeah moment for sure.
So I swear it wasn't 2 days later, I get a call, Dr. Stephen Williams, I'll see you now.
Wow.
And this is the guy that David Agus told me I got to get to. And I swear I was having nightmares going, what if I go with him and I don't get with him? And then it's something is botched. Something goes wrong. And I go, and God says, look, that's what you get for being selfish. You had it, you had it all set up. So I went to Stephen Williams, same thing. He has to decide whether he's going to do this operation. Stephen Williams said, I'll do it. Let's do it. And I said, oh, okay, I've got 2 more doctors now. I got to say something. So I went back to my friend Arlene. I said, Arlene, I don't know what to do. I said, I've got these 2 great, I knew I wanted to do the Da Vinci method, but I didn't want to do what my urologist wanted to do, the old school. So I said, I got to make a decision. And she said, let me ask David Agus, Dr. Agus. So she asked him, and he said, it'd be unethical for me to answer that question. I can't say which doctor he should go to. So Arlene is a genius. She said, if it were your son, which surgeon would you use? He goes, oh, Dr. Stephen Williams. So I went with Dr. Stephen Williams.
Nice. Nice.
And yeah, so from that, when I was recovering, I decided I wanted to write a book. My wife was like, you can barely read a book. What are you talking about? So I'd lie awake every night. And
what was that book called? That was
So the book is called The Trans Am Diaries. It's a long title, A Hillbilly's Road Trip from Stand-Up Comedy to Cancer and Back Again. So I was very lucky to get it published. Very fortunate that I became an ambassador for the Prostate Cancer Foundation, Michael Milken's foundation. They put me in Times Square. I did tons of media, book signings. Jonathan Simon, who's the CEO, he's got like 3,000 doctors under him. told me that my writing reminded him of Hemingway. I'm like, you mean Skeeter Hemingway, the mechanic down at the 70s? He's like, no. He's like, Steve, there really is something very valuable to humor. And you took this situation and you found humor in it and your life. He goes, I personally think your book should be in every hospital. And it's not, but it's just a feather in my cap that he said that, you know. I was lucky to get it published. I didn't know how to get a book published. I was asked to go on a show kind of like this, a motivational type of show. And I was just talking, and I was talking about a book I was writing. And I was telling stories and hell-raising stories. And there was somebody on the set that kept laughing, like really loud. And after it was over, he said, you know, who's publishing your book? I said, I don't know. I don't have a publisher. He said, well, who's shopping your book? Who's pitching it? I go, I don't know. He said, well, I'm a publicist and I know a few publishers. And I said, well, it looks like you're pitching my book. You are. You got the hit. So in the meantime, I read this book called What Are You Waiting For? Go ahead and write that book. And I'd already written the book, and I just wanted to learn how to pitch a book, how to put together like your package. And it said, get ready, you're going to be rejected about 50 times. And I said, I don't know if I can take rejection 50 times. On about 13 or 14, I'm going to say, you know what, we don't need a book. I'll just keep this little journal. And he called me up and said, Steve, I've got 3 publishers that are interested. This first publisher from West Virginia called Headline Books, Independent Publisher of the Year. They get your humor because I'm from Kentucky. They get it. What do you want to do? I said, we're good. He said, you don't want to pitch it anymore? I said, no. So Headline Books published both of my books. I'm very, very grateful to them.
Wow, that's amazing. So a guy following his dream, living life, right? Doing some great stuff out in LA. You get this diagnosis. You're like, you guys, you know, you got your game face, black under the eyes. You're researching this, doing it all, right?
You're pretending to be a rock star. I didn't really tell anybody.
Rock star. You're totally, so you go with the guy with the Da Vinci, which is an amazing thing. I actually used to work for a urology company, and I sat in the OR with the Da Vinci.
Wow.
And that had changed the outcomes for sure, you know? So that is awesome. So they got it out. Mm-hmm. Everything's in order south of the border.
Everything's good.
Everything's good in the hood.
Everything's working. We're still saluting.
So that's like, in my mind, like, listen, you know, like, I'd be like, that'd be my biggest fear. You know what I mean?
Well, what I say in my comedy act, because guys always want to know, like, hey, dude, can the thing still work in the plumbing? Because if they don't work anymore, I'm never getting my prostate checked. I go, everything works except now glitter comes out. You know, when you have that moment, you know, I put on roller skates and just kind of got this feeling. Awesome. No, but you know, guys are proud. And that's why I think they wanted me to be a spokesperson and encourage men to get checked before, because the mark was 50. Wait till you're 50. Well, I would have been dead by 50. They said I wouldn't be here if I waited to that mark. So I try to tell guys, hey, if you don't think something's right, go get checked. Who cares? If you had to pay $200 out of pocket to get the blood work, do it. Because men, for whatever reason, like for me, we'll never know why I got it, but it could, you know, probably something environmental. Who knows? Whatever. It doesn't matter. We took care of it. And I just want to encourage guys to take care of that and not be so proud. I said, if they give guys a shot of tequila to go in and get checked, that might help. 2-for-1 special. Your wife goes in at the same time, but you know, men are proud
before you go.
Yeah, I've literally, Todd, been in meetings where they asked me to come in, and these guys are like, you know, it really affects them psychologically that have had that. And I was fortunate not to get it while I was young, but things are good. But if you get it when you're older, like most men do, they call it the old men's cancer or whatever. Sometimes they just try to slow it down.
Because it's, you know what I mean? It's normally a slower growing, right?
And so
it's rare for younger people to get it, right? Isn't it like not as common?
Very rare. I've only met one other guy that had it the same age as me. And with me, it was more, I had more than the biopsy showed. So it's a good thing I didn't try any experimental nonsense, because it was on both sides and it was about to be ugly. But yeah, I mean, you still want to, I'm still silly. My wife says I share too much, like in the book, I shared too much about the plumbing and all that. But hey, what some guys may be embarrassed about, I'm like, I got to tell everybody this is funny.
Well, we worry about the plumbing. Like, let's just even take prostate cancer out of the equation.
Yeah.
The guys are worried about the plumbing, whether they're walking and talking anyway, right?
Yeah, always. It's funny, like I had, as a matter of fact, Rockstars of Comedy, I got a production deal, and we had TV pitches set up for like the month of January. And I didn't want to tell them, because the stigma of going in and I'm young and I'm like, hey, rock star comic or whatever. Oh, this guy just had prostate cancer, like a chink in his armor. So I didn't tell them what was going on. I said, hey guys, I'm not available in January. I told the production company, can we go do the network pitches in February? We signed Tommy Lee as executive producer of the project.
From Motley Crue?
Yeah, Motley Crue. So I knew Tommy was going to be with me in all the meetings, all the pitch meetings. So I didn't want to go in. I lost weight. I knew I was going to be slowed down a little bit. So I said, let's push it to February. I didn't tell anybody. So I still like feathered the hair and I went in like, yeah, let's rock. Yeah, we're crazy. We're going on stage. We tell, it's not the old comic, hey, so what's with this airplane food? Like, no, we're talking about, dating and there's girl, I said, it's a different energy now. Now it's hip comedy. It's fun. It's rock and roll comedy. And so we went in pitching, but I didn't tell Tommy. I didn't tell anybody what was going on. They didn't know until the book came out.
Okay.
But now I joke about it on stage. I tell people for the next 45 minutes, the waitress is going to pass out some pamphlets. I want to talk to you about prostate cancer. Like, oh, check, please, check.
They're all ready to leave.
Yeah.
So that's awesome that you really like, what do you think, so this happens, you go through this.
Mm-hmm.
What changed? Did anything change for you as a result of the diagnosis?
I think, Todd, like, even though I'm a pretty optimistic guy, ignorance is bliss. I don't watch the news, Todd. Even on my podcast, I tell people, don't talk about politics. We're just going to have a good time and laugh. Right. But I do appreciate, I don't want to waste a day. Like my mother-in-law says, Steve, I never see you sitting on the couch. I said, if I sit on the couch, I'm going to think of 10 things I should be doing. And I like to make lists. I like to have goals. I like to have fun with my kids. I don't put my kids in one room and I'm in another. I'm the one going, come on, kids, let's watch a Christmas movie. They're like, Dad, again. I'm like, come on, let's snuggle and drink. Like I love every minute of it. I love life. I love making people laugh. We were watching Home Alone 2 nights ago. And I don't know if you've seen that, where they're talking to the detective and the detective says, have this ever happened before? And they're like, yeah, as a matter of fact, we did this before. We kind of have a reputation. And the detective's not laughing. He's like this. And my kid said, Dad, it's like every time we pull up and there's a security guard or something and you're cracking jokes. Like just last week, I took my son to the doctor, to Kaiser, for an eye exam. And they're serious about the COVID, and you got to walk through a tent, and they're doing the temperature, and you feeling any aches or pains? I'm like, yeah, I do have a pain. She's like, and her eyes got brighter. She's gonna send me to another area, and she goes, do you have a pain? I go, yeah. And he's 13 years old, and he's right here. He's a pain in my butt. And she like, do you have an appointment? Like my son's like, oh my God, like, because I'm always cracking jokes. I'm like, well, I thought it was funny.
I did too. That's awesome. So nobody really knew publicly until you put the book out. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. And when you're first diagnosed with something like what you had, Todd, I'm sure everybody is an expert. Everybody, family,
try this, do this.
And they mean well.
Oh yeah.
But your head's just going, so much information. So even though I told my family and I was doing my own research, my wife was doing, we had things covered and I knew which way I wanted to go. Everyone still, you got to try this or try chemo pellets, try this, Steve. You get so much information and everybody means well, but that's super overwhelming, you know?
Yeah.
So my advice is if you know someone that has cancer or diagnosed with something serious, be there as a friend. Ask them, can you provide meals? Can you take them somewhere? Anything you can do. But you know, don't try to be an expert because we're not.
You know, it's funny you say that because like when I was going through what I was going through with the brain tumor and stuff, like the things that mattered most were just having conversations with people and people just kind of being there. And like, it was about the experience with people. Cause you're like, you don't know what's going to happen. You know, your life could be super short.
Yeah.
And, the one thing I like about what you're sharing, you know, was about humor. Right. Do you feel that the humor was something that helped you get through it better or?
Definitely. I've always been a glasses half full kind of thing. And Richard Pryor said, the best comedy comes from tragedy, comes from adversity. And even though I grew up poor, all that was rich material. And I love my relatives. And I had an Uncle Ricky that just passed away 2 years ago. He was a legend in Los Angeles. He'd never been to Los Angeles because I talked about him for years. And his catchphrase was blaze on, man, blaze on, like meaning, you know, I didn't know what it meant as a kid, but he'd always be driving his Chevelle going, hey, man, blaze on, Steve. He was only like 7 years older than me. So as a kid, he would have to watch me some babysitting while my mom was working. And my mom would give him $5 to take me to see The Jungle Book, a Disney movie. He would take me to see Cheech and Chong, you know? So he passed away a couple of years ago, and on his headstone, my mom, they just got his headstone like a month ago. She sent me a picture and it says blaze on. The happiest guy, didn't have much, lived it, but the happiest dude in the world. And I try to look at life like that. Like it's not what you have around you, it's what you have, the people around you and what you have in your heart.
That's true. You know, one of the things, and this just came up for me recently, is I started to really think about, and I talked about this with Wendy, who was on the Pryor show. She actually, you know,
she's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah. She's super awesome. I was talking to her and we were talking about like, she's a recovering workaholic. And I had a lot of trauma when I was younger. And honestly, I got an apartment just after high school and I partied like a rock star. And then eventually it got old because it was really hard. And at a young age, I don't know what it was. I was like, I don't want my life to be this the way it is. And I actually got involved in got help. And I had a counselor for a long time and I actually connected with her. And she goes, Todd, like you have beaten all odds from a PTSD trauma perspective. Wow. Never mind the brain tumor. That's later. And I go, wow, like I scratch my head. I go, why do you think all the odds were against me? And I consider myself successful as far as just living, you know what Absolutely, I mean? Yeah. Like I'm not, you know, she goes, you know why? She goes, because you got an awesome sense of humor. And that's what helped you throughout all of the years. I said, are you serious? Mm-hmm. And you were determined. Mm-hmm. I was determined to be different, you know?
Yeah. What I remember as a kid watching variety shows is laughing. My mom coming home from, you know, busting her butt 9 to 5, make dinner, and we would sit down and watch the Jeffersons or the Carol Burnett show or Good Times or different show, whatever it was, and laughing together.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, you know, heart to heart conversations. We bonded by laughter, you know? So I think it's a very, very powerful tool.
Absolutely. There's a lot of data that supports humor. And, you know, I had another person on and said, like, honor yourselves. Like something she had to watch a funny movie at night or when you're super busy or whatever, you know, cry a little bit or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like I get in those moods. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to play like Fletch, like actually, you know, or whatever. Like I used to love Chevy Chase back in the day, but I'll play some of these. the next, it means as I'm going from like people I'm talking about, like Fletch and stuff. So who were some of the people or heroes you might have had growing up, or that you reflect upon? Like, who you mentioned, Richard Pryor. Are there
Richard
people
Pryor.
that are like, oh my
There's a
God?
wide spectrum because I like Dick Van Dyke. Dick Van Dyke show I didn't discover until high school, but I connected with that. It'd be reruns like at 11 o'clock at night because God knows I wasn't doing any homework. So I discovered the Dick Van Dyke show, and it was about a comedy writer who wrote for a talk show host. He wrote the jokes. So it kind of pulled the curtains back because like I said, I was enamored with television and entertaining people. So I'm like, oh, that's how it works. That guy's just not walking on stage. Johnny Carson doesn't walk on stage and he's ad-libbing. So the best comics make it look like it's coming off the top of their head. It's a conversation. It's a train of thought. It's like, no, that's how it works. And I go, how cool would it be to have a dad that worked like that? That was his job, to be funny and to write for this. So I love that. And he lives not far from me. He's 96 now. And he's one person I haven't met. So hang on, Dick. I'm gonna stalk you until we hang out. Matter of fact, his car caught on fire a couple of years ago, right near me. I was so mad I didn't get to save him. I'm like, I could have saved Dick Van Dyke. We would have been best friends.
I used to watch that show, actually, and the Honeymooners. I used to like Lucy too. Did you?
All of that. I think I'm a kind of a Renaissance comedy person because I love, Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis. I've read all of the biographies and autobiographies about them. Jackie Gleason's one of my favorites, the great one. But also I love Elvis. I'm obsessed with everything Elvis. I say he was my biological father. Everything. This right here is a custom-made TCB. If you know what TCB means, taking care of business, man. So that was Elvis's logo. My wife had this made for me. An Evel Knievel, which we talked about, because as a kid, he was like a superhero. Yeah. I'm like, this guy is a daredevil. He's doing this crazy shit, but he gets attention, and he's ballsy. He's brave. He's going for his dream, So I always admired people that do that, whether it be entertainment or like Evel Knievel, stunt stuff like that. And I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of people. Unfortunately, never met Elvis or Evel Knievel, but I had Larry Strickland on my show, who was Elvis's bass singer. And I just want to hear stories about, as close as I can get to my heroes. But Richard Pryor was a good one. I always admired Richard Pryor. I had his tapes, his 8-tracks hidden. And I was in a room once with Richard at the Comedy Store. He went on stage. I didn't talk to him. He was in a wheelchair at the time, but someone got him to sign a thing for me. And I said, tell him, I wish I had $5 for every joke I would tell as a kid I'd say, this is a Richard Pryor, and it would be a naughty joke. And he'd say, and I wish I had $5 for every time someone told me that. Like everybody says that. But I just enjoy life. I enjoy, being with my kids and humor every day, and fitness. Fitness has been a big part of my life. I was a skinny, like malnourished little hillbilly, and I always dreamed of having muscles. So that was another shocking thing. When I discovered I had cancer, I'm like, how is this even possible? I exercise, I eat healthy. And after I was diagnosed, because I learned that carcinogens, I grilled a lot, they could cause the cancer. So I actually went vegetarian for 4 years. And then I'm like, no, I'm a carnivore. I need some meat. I need some steak and it's got creatine, it's got iron. We're designed to eat, to have that in our body, those nutrients.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a believer in that for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things when we get a diagnosis, we're like going like researching, and then you hear people go vegan, go this, go that. And that's where a lot of this stuff could get confusing. And I really researched that really people don't know.
Yeah.
But then I figured it out. There were some really solid experts that I started listening to, and they all started to overlap. And I'm like, oh, this now is starting to make sense, because I really researched kind of diet. And then I was like, well, like I worked out, I ran, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I see another piece for me, which was stress and trauma, past trauma. I think all that stuff stressed the body out a bit, but I love your story. So you got a couple books, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So the
And
Trans Am Diaries came out. Then I took a long break because the Trans Am Diaries, I was kind of under the gun. I wanted to write that in 1 year. From the time I was diagnosed to the 1 year mark is a big mark, as you know, from having cancer. You get all your tests, boom, 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 boom. And then 1 year mark, you're like, okay, things are looking good. 5 year mark's better, but 1 year mark was good. It actually took me a little longer because I was working on a project and I wanted that project to be the final, like it was a TV project. It looked like it was going to go. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Thought I was going to die. A year later, look what happened. Turned out the project fell through. I'm like, damn it. So wrote another ending. And so it was a little over a year in the making of the Trans Am Diaries. The second book, I would just be driving. I didn't want to be with anything to do with cancer. I just wanted to be funny stories. Because after I wrote the Trans Am Diaries, the cancer is just a common thread. I put stories, some are heartfelt, some are, make you cry. And the next one, I hope makes you pee your pants. And that's what I hear. And I wanted that to be a roller coaster. The second book, I just wanted to be funny stories. So I took my time. I took about 3 years. I'd think of a story, I'd write it, I'd tweak it, and then you go back and read through it, and I would keep tweaking it and keep doing another draft. And I turned it in, and then there's like a year for the editor goes back and forth with you, and the publisher, they're getting all their ducks in order, and then COVID hit. So then COVID hit, everything's on the shelf for 18 months. So the book it came out in September.
Okay.
So Trans Am Diaries is a special place in my heart because I wrote that when I was really going through something. And the next one is just silliness.
That's good. And we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So if anybody's interested in the books. Now, and I asked everybody this question, if you didn't have the diagnosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you knew now, right? How would what shifted? How would you have changed your life? Like, what is the cancer diagnosis? Had that changed anything for you and how you live your life?
I think I'm more patient now. I think I'm a little more patient. I try to listen more. I'm still on 11 all the time, so I really have to try to remind myself to dial it back. But I try to be present. So present meaning, John Lennon has a great line in his song "Beautiful Boy" that he wrote about his son Julian. It's called "Life is what happens." Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. I haven't thought of that in a while, but life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. So even though I may have 20 irons in the fire and I'm working on this project and that, I'm in the gym, I'm doing comedy, I never want to look back in 5 years. I'm like, where my kids are this big now. Where did the 5 years go? I should have spent more time. When Rockstars of Comedy came out, I was super proud of myself. This is pre-cancer, even though I had a baby and I loved him more than anything. I thought I was even capable of loving something. I was planning the big premiere party. And it was going to be at this Hollywood really hot spot. I thought I was cool. And I had this guest list. And it's the only time I was kind of ignoring him a little bit. Like he wasn't just attached to me all the time. So I was going back and forth and I'm doing emails and I hear like a ping, like someone confirmed. So I'm doing the guest list and I walk by him and I had him in this little automated rocker thing on the floor. So I walked by the living room and I hadn't even noticed. As I would go by, his head would go like this. And I stopped and he just looked at me like, what am I, chopped liver now? And it like stabbed me in the heart. And I was like, I'm sorry, buddy, let's go. The other stuff is just a hobby. This is my heart. So I don't want to miss anything. I want to appreciate every day, whether I've not reached my goals that I set for myself. It's okay. I enjoy life. Things have gotten really crazy out here, as you probably see on the news. It's getting more dangerous. My wife wants to go to Nashville, so who knows what's going to happen, but if we go to Nashville, we go to Nashville. We just want the best life for our children. I want them to grow up like we did, maybe not jumping trash cans in the middle of the street,
But we turned out all right. I don't think there's anything wrong with jumping trash cans.
But just wear a helmet.
On that, I'm going to say something that the other day, it was like before this brain tumor thing, my girlfriend's daughter, she had this old 5-speed that was, they don't make them anymore, but there was one in the garage. And
was it a Schwinn? Was it?
I don't even remember, but my brother had one when we were kids. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a 5-speed. I'm going to hop on it. The daughter goes, you need to put a helmet on. I said, listen, I grew up in the 80s. You didn't wear helmets. What are you talking about? And I just zoomed out.
Yeah, I'll be riding with my kids and they busted me one day. We were out riding bikes and I have a helmet. My wife bought me a helmet, but we go, come on, kids. I'm in a hurry. Daddy, where's your helmet? Don't worry about it. And so they had their helmets on, of course. And I'm racing my son and I start doing a wheelie and I'm riding, but I'm going too fast and I ate it. As soon as we got back home, guess what they did? Mommy, guess what happened? Daddy was in a wheelie and he crashed. And she goes, you're an idiot. You didn't have your helmet on? I was like, oh, you snitch.
I see the value of a helmet now because I had the brain thing. So I live on the lake. So last year was honestly, I was like a couple months post-op. So I walk on the ice and I wore my ski helmet.
This was pretty, when did you have the brain, the cancer?
It was a year ago, October.
Wow. So this is pretty fresh.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed out of nowhere, really. It was like,
wow.
My hand felt weird. I went to the ER. I thought I was working too much. Thought, you never know. I was close to 49, 48-ish.
Jeez, yeah.
And I've had friends that are in good shape and have had strokes. So I was like, maybe I should get checked out.
Yeah.
Go there. They're like, they do a scan. They're like, you're not going crazy. You got a marble-sized tumor in your head. I'm like,
wow.
Thank
God, man.
Out of nowhere. I was like, boom, 2 weeks later, I had brain surgery.
So you're pretty fresh out of it, man. You're
a year, a little over a year. And, it was an eye-opening experience, and really taught me a lot about like life is short, enjoy the moments. And at that time, like when I was diagnosed, I was in the hospital a little bit and like money didn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't rich, wasn't poor, but
you just asked for time. You're trying to make deals with God. You're like,
well, it didn't really matter. What mattered was like the conversations you have with people, the relationships, and you value that stuff. And then trying to, you survive, right? And then it's like living this new life, knowing new information.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you never know.
You get information. You do get new information and new appreciation from these experiences.
You totally do.
Yeah.
And so you never know, right? Like the average person that never had a diagnosis could pretty much say, hey, this is how my life's going to go. Granted, I could get hit by a car or something tragic could happen. Yeah. But when you've had something, there's always that lurking possibility like, oh, they could scam me and find something. Now, do you ever think about the future with that? Or are you pretty much like, you know what,
You mean if something bad could happen again?
Yeah. If did it spread or do they test you? Do you,
you get checked. And that's one thing I'd tell people is don't neglect early detection is everything, so get the checkups. Do not skip those. Don't, just knock it out. Just do it. You want to know what's going on in here. You may look good in the gym, but you don't know what's going on the inside.
Yeah. And think about it, like, you're not the only person that had on here where it was almost like misdiagnosis or people kind of thought I'm really surprised. I see that theme in a lot of the people that I've interviewed so far.
Well, I think also now you have to be persistent. So I don't know if this is true, but I was told from a certain hospital, from a friend that was a doctor, like they were instructed to spend 7 minutes per patient. So you go in and they have 25 patients to see that day or whatever. Okay, what's going on, Steve? Blah, 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 blah. They might not be as thorough as you would hope them to be. So you really have to be diligent and be your own advocate and be annoying. Say, no, check this out. This is what I want you to look at. So yeah, don't trust someone else, especially if you know there's other testing that could be done. And if you find out they're not doing that, then, go to another doctor, go to another hospital.
Yeah. Get a second opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much. I got one quick question for you is, what would you say to somebody that either went through some kind of traumatic experience, medical or something like that? And, what kind of advice kind of moving forward?
You mean
what's kind of the one thing?
You mean if someone went through that and they can't get their mojo
they're
again?
maybe struggling, they're having a hard time. Like what's,
Well, I was fortunate that I had my wife, I had my kids. I knew I wanted to be around for that. And I would say, think of people that love you and how much they care about you and what you do have in your life and what you have to live for. And, listen to some Richard Pryor, watch Fletch. Try to laugh, try to look
Fletch came on
humor. Like I said, I really don't watch the news because you're inundated. I posted something today that I saw some memes like, we can't control what's going on around us. What we're being inundated with, but we can control what's going on in our mind. So close out any negative stuff. It's easy to turn off the TV, get some fresh air, go for a hike. You want these endorphins to kick in. You get that through exercise and fresh air. And I tell people when they ask me, what should they eat? Well, I'm not going to break down every meal. I say, eat as closest to earth as you can. So try to cut out the middleman, cut out things with a shelf life or something in it that you can't pronounce. That's not good for you. So junk food is going to come back to haunt you in some way or some form. And as you probably know from being a nurse. So look for the good in life and humor and take good care of your mind and your body and surround yourself by positive people.
I love it. That is it.
I just made that up.
Stevie,
I'll write that down somewhere. Hold on.
Yeah, you got it right. It's recorded, man.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
Man. We'll get the clip on that, and we'll send it. This is Words of Wisdom by Stevie D.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, deep thoughts.
Deep thoughts, right back in
Hillbilly knowledge.
So awesome! I so appreciate you coming on and sharing.
I appreciate you, buddy.
Sharing your story, and we look forward to seeing what you're doing out in the world. And for anybody who wants to plug into Stevie D, we'll have it in the show notes, and you could reach out to him. So everybody, you have an awesome day.